And there we go. All righty. Griff, sorry about the wait there, bud. I was making sure I had everything straight. I was actually clipping a couple of your tweets for the Brind'amour part of the show and everything like that.
It's all good.
Yeah, but how are you doing, buddy? Good to see you.
Yeah, man. Good to see you as well. I'm doing good. Just work's been kind of brutal this week, but and it's only Tuesday. But yeah, I enjoyed Game 7 last night and just ready for the off season. And it was nice to see the preseason schedule drop today.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Because a bunch of teams dropped theirs like a week ago, so it was cool to see us drop ours.
Yeah.
So I will take a quick moment to congratulate the Florida Panthers. I would also like to congratulate the Edmonton Oilers on making that an interesting series because a few days ago it looked like it was not going to be. I know you'll probably want to have some thoughts on the Selke thing because I've got some extensive ones myself. We can discuss that after the primary two topics.
Conn Smythe.
The Conn Smythe thing. Excuse me. I don't know why. I don't know why I said Selke. I'll tell you why in a second. Why I'm thinking about that. Particularly, I want to congratulate my boy Tuomo Ruutu, one of my favorite players of all time, who has a ring now. So that makes me really happy. Stevie Lawrence, E2 Lusterine, and Gustav Forsling, former Hurricanes, all have rings. So that's one thing that it's great to see. And yes, it is also Pyotr Kochekov's birthday. Happy birthday to him. No touch, my guys.
Great quote.
It was. I mean, his other really good ones. Please score, boys. Fuck, I go home.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
All right. So the first big thing here. Disappointed, but not surprised. Rod Brind'amour, again, was not inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame. What really annoys me about this is considering they're allowed to put 4 male players in every year, and they only chose 3.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I didn't expect it again, but there's just always that little bit of hope, you know. And it's really been it's been like this last 3 years.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. The people they put in, other than one,
Pavel Datsyuk.
Yeah, that's fine.
That was a first ballot.
Yeah, absolutely. But Shea Weber, first ballot, come on. Like,
speaking of, somebody in the chat just said that. Jersey Sean, good to see you, buddy. Haven't seen you in a while. A little surprise. Yeah, I you know what? We're gonna apply some visuals to this here. So the guy right here below me on the screen wrote this: 0-time Norris winner, even though he was one of those defensemen that put up enough offensive numbers to where he could have won it. I don't remember if he was ever a finalist for it or not. I believe he was at one point. Don't quote me on it. I'd have to double check because I threw this together really quick. Won Marc Messier Leadership Award, and you know what? I don't understand the validity of that award.
No.
This is where I got to side with AB. If he were here, I know what he would be saying. Versus 2-time Selke winner, 1-time Stanley Cup champion. Additionally, his first Selke that he won in those back-to-back Selkes that he won was the same year that he won a cup.
Yeah.
Just like Sasha Barkov just did. That's a hell of a feat. And the guy on top was first ballot. Make it make sense? It does not. Now, Ryan Hinkle here, since there's such an emphasis on points. Excuse me, Jeremy Roenick played 1,363 games, 154 in the playoffs, had a total of 53 goals, 513 goals, 1,216 points. No NHL hardware, but he did have an Olympic silver. Rod Brind'amour, on the other hand, played 1,484 games, 159 in the playoffs, 51 goals, 1,184 points, 2 Selkes, and captained a team to the Stanley Cup. That alone right there, to me, says that Brind'amour has met the criteria to be in the Hockey Hall of Fame multiple times over. Now, here's something I want to hear your thoughts on, and me and Sam talked about this a little bit the other night. I think that the criteria should not be solely placed on what you did as a player and what you did, like in Brind'amour's case, he has a coaching resume to go along with it. I think that there are times where there should be exceptions where that criteria should be combined because of the overall contributions made to the game. What do you think?
Well, I understand, they try to, since they put in, builders and players, if you take a guy like for instance, Rod Brind'amour has a coaching resume as well as, as an impressive player resume. So if you're going to consider the coaching resume, if you're just going to consider the whole person and their contribution to the game of hockey, then that's fine. But you have to do away with the player builder differentiation in the, the guidelines or the rules or whatever, in my opinion. So if you're going to put him in as a player, which he deserves, that's fine. But I believe when Rod Brind'amour is done coaching, if he stays longer than 3 more years, if he does a full career coaching and say he does 10 more years and wins a cup or 2 or whatever, then I think he's got a resume on that side too that could be Hall of Fame worthy. So I agree with you though, like taking the whole person into account and their contribution to the game of hockey, that's fine, but you have to adjust the rules for entrance into the Hall, in my opinion. And just like we'll talk about with the Conn Smythe Trophy, as written is one way, but how it should be written is another. But we'll get to that later.
Yeah, that's going to be. I did a lot of reading other people's thoughts on that today, and like when you guys were talking about in the chat last night, I fell asleep without about 10 minutes left in the third period because I got up early that morning and went to the gym and everything. So, or I'm sorry, I didn't go to the gym. I didn't go to work at all because I was dehydrated, but I still forced myself to go to the gym. But probably not the best idea, but I did it anyway. So that was one of the funny things about it to me is that, like, I feel like that they need to change the criteria up and make it a little bit more concrete. At the same time, though, it's one of the things that I feel like the Hockey Hall of Fame is not going to recognize, especially going into the future, is good defense, whether that's coming from a defenseman or from a forward. They're not going to recognize those things. And that's becoming more and more undersold as it is. So someone who is as great of a player like, say, Jacob Slavin, in my mind, he will eventually be a Hall of Fame worthy player. The only reason he won't be there is because he doesn't put the numbers up. But to be able to shut down people like Connor McDavid, Cale Makar, Austin Matthews, that he does habitually, you have to be pretty damn good at hockey to do that, just in a different capacity than those guys. So that's what's weird to me about it.
It's hard to quantify defense, right? Which is why the award system and all this is the way it is. That's why the Norris is won by the defenseman who puts up the most points. Doesn't matter how bad they are at defense, i.e. Erik Karlsson. It's quantifiable. So, but the thing that the argument for Rod Brind'amour though is yes, he was a defensive forward, but he has the quantifiable attributes or whatever on his resume. And that's, and that tweet that you showed that I put out about 0 Norris trophies, 2 versus 2 Selke trophies. It's hard to compare a forward to a defenseman. So that's why I left off goals and goals and assists and all that stuff and just put the hardware.
Yeah. And there's one other thing or 2 other things actually I'll say. One, career longevity is not normally taken into account. At least it's not a big thing when it comes to putting someone in the Hockey Hall of Fame. I think that it should be because you're clearly doing something right if you play 1,200, 1,300 games in the NHL. You clearly have some sort of, you bring something to the table to where you keep playing that long, considering Brind'amour spent most of his career with us and a decent amount of time with Philadelphia and a short amount of time with St. Louis in the very beginning. So I think that those are things that need to be accounted for. Now, if they want to talk about the numbers, most of Brind'amour's career, 1,184 points, most of that was pre-lockout and in the dead puck era, and he still put up those kinds of numbers. That's the equivalent nowadays. 1,184 points nowadays is much easier to get to. And I mean that in a contextual manner. I'm not saying it's easy to do that. It's easier to score that much now than it was prior to the lockout. When you still had 2-line pass, everyone was using wood sticks and T-blade skates. It is much faster of a game that is more centered around scoring. The only difference is goalies are better now and have better equipment now than they probably ever have on average. I'm not saying that every goalie out there is better than Martin Brodeur or Patrick Waugh, but when Brind'amour played, it was much harder to put up numbers.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. You know, at this point, though, I don't know. I don't know what the issue is. It's easy to say, well, I know what I think. It sounds it sounds a little crazy just to the average person, but I'm not a conspiracy theorist, so to speak, by definition. But I think that there's something definitely going on. And somebody on Twitter put out a tweet earlier that I want to read real quick, and it kind of really hit home for me. Let me just pull it up. So it says, and this is, I'm sure you've seen Erin Manning Writes, right?
Yeah, I like her stuff.
Yeah, I do too. So she put out a tweet that said, it's called, quote, Hockey Hall of Fame because, quote, Hockey Hall of some giants of the sport we must honor, plus our friends and cronies, but minus the guys we hate because deep down we are mean girls with personal vendettas, end quote, is too long.
You know what?
That's exactly right.
She's got a point about that, though. And it's like going back to what we were talking about earlier with Ron Francis. I didn't get the chance to write this earlier, but I was going to after you said the thing you said about taking his number down from the rafters and putting it on waivers. I thought that shit was hilarious. I was like, I wanted to say they melted the ice. They put the boards away, but they forgot to take the rest of the trash out and then show a picture of Francis's number hanging from the rafters. Because what he's doing to Brind'amour now it's at the point, personally, to me, that it is superseding what he did for this franchise, including when he was playing with the Whalers. Like, I don't understand how this has boiled over to the point where he can't put that away for one damn day and vote for Brind'amour to go in the Hall of Fame. You know that he's got something to do with it.
Absolutely. You got to be impartial. If you are going to be part of that committee or that board or whatever, you have to be impartial and you have to put your personal feelings away. My theory is that, Rod Brind'amour is the face of the Carolina Hurricanes history, right? From start to now. He's got his fingerprints over everything that the franchise has ever done. More so than one Ron Francis.
Right.
In my opinion. And, I mean, I don't know if that has something to do with it. I don't know if there's some jealousy that sounds ridiculous, but is it really ridiculous?
Well, considering the fallout they had over the Bill Peters thing, I'm wondering if that was so bad that it's still affecting this now.
It could be.
That's the only thing I can think of. But, from all accounts, from everything I've heard and read and seen about that, everything that's public in regards to that situation, Brind'amour didn't do anything wrong. Francis did. Yeah.
I don't know. And maybe that's not it. I mean, but I mean, all signs point to that. But if you're going to put Shea Weber in first ballot, come on. Like, I think Pekka Rinne should have gone in over Shea Weber.
I agree.
I don't even think that, he was a first ballot guy this year, or he was up for, this was his first appearance, or first, what am I trying to say? First year of eligibility. There we go. So I would have put him in over Shea Weber, and, I wouldn't put either of them in this time.
Yeah, because like all the comparisons that we've seen, nobody's arguing with Pavel Datsyuk. Nobody's going to. Everyone knows how good he was. He was one of those guys, if he decided to stay over here instead of going back home, he could have kept playing. It's like, no one argued with that. But there are people saying that when Ryan drew that comparison between Brind'amour and Roenick, they're saying, stop, Roenick deserves to be in there. Nobody's saying that he doesn't.
No.
We're just saying that
so does Brind'amour.
Brind'amour's on his third, fourth year of eligibility now, and it still hasn't gotten done. Right. Now, I'm not someone who says that Brind'amour should have been in on his first ballot, but by now it should have happened. And I'm wondering why it's such a problem. Now, if Francis ever leaves that committee and then Brind'amour's on the next time, then we have our answer as to what happened. But it also seems like, considering some of the interactions he's had with the officials and with the league, and that interview he had with Elliot Friedman where he talked about stuff, someone somewhere high up really has it out for him, and I don't know why.
Yeah. I was just looking at the chat. There's a question that just came across. I mean, there's been a few of them, but there was one that really stood out to me from Coconut Kyle.
Yeah, let me scroll down here. I actually totally missed these. I'm sorry, guys. Question in the show and chat: based on what or where is the Ron Francis story coming from? Is it positive it's him or it's speculation? I will say on my end, it is a very, I will cautiously say this, educated guess on my part, because I remember when the drama with the whole Bill Peters thing went down, and there was a lot of vague stuff about it, and then there was some other stuff that came out and everything, that Brind'amour went to Francis and said that the things with Bill Peters were happening. Bill Peters still had his job, though, until the end of that season, when, he was, given permission to speak to Calgary, and he left, which was one of the best things that ever happened to this franchise. And then ultimately, Brind'amour took the head coaching job after that. And then, not to mention, I know Dundon is a very hands-on guy, but it seemed like out of all the regime change stuff he did, all the liquidation he did of the staff, he was really quick to get to Francis. He didn't waste any time trying to get rid of him. The only reason he didn't outright fire him is so he didn't have to pay him whatever their version of a severance package is. He just demoted him to force him to leave.
Right.
So that's the only thing I can think of.
I think by definition, it's speculation. But there have been, and I'm not gonna plug anybody or call any names, but there have been people that are very close to the organization, that are respected members of the media, that have been following this team and covering this team for years upon years, that have publicly speculated the same thing. So I think, again, by definition, it's speculation. However, everyone kind of knows what's going on, but you can't prove it, right? So,
all right. So we'll go through some of the chats here, and then I've got some stuff pulled up here in regard to Guentzel that we'll get to. Him being linked to the other 31 teams in the NHL, which I'm at the point where I'm just kind of like, you know what? When he signs something, that's when I'll believe it. But until then, it's like every time link to this team, link to this team. Oh, stuff's picking up. And I'm like, okay, well, is there anything new to report about it or not? It's just, everything seems like clickbait lately when it comes to this guy. I know he's the big story right now. He's the big pending UFA, but like, when we get to that topic, I'll give my reasoning, as we talked about a little bit earlier, why I'm kind of leaning back towards being confident that he's going to sign. So Matthew P says, evening all. Good to see you, pal. BTS, not the band. Game 7 was the last Adidas jersey game ever. Yeah,
unfortunately.
Very unfortunate, because I didn't expect Adidas to do as good of a job as they did. And now I'm terrified of what's going to happen with Fanatics. They even took over the same factory as Adidas, and I'm still worried how the sweaters are going to turn out. They've got the exact same material, probably most of the exact same employees, and I'm still kind of like wondering what's going to happen with that. Little surprise, Shea Weber was first ballot. Yeah, we said that from the get-go earlier today when we were in our little group chat and everything. We were kind of like, how the heck, Shea Weber the first time up? Seriously? Like, I'm not hating on Shea Weber, an incredible hockey player, but first ballot Hall of Famer good? I don't know about that.
No.
Will Parks, Rod gets shafted again. That sounds bad. Yeah, Rod got the rod from the Hockey Hall of Fame again. BG, what's up, buddy? I'm waiting on the day that he finally does get in the Hall of Fame, because I know whatever graphic you put out like 5 minutes after it happens is going to be remarkable. Rod over Shea, and yeah, we agree, buddy. Will Parks again says, what does the league have against the bot? Dude, good question, man.
Not the league, it's the committee.
Or it's the committee itself, yeah. I don't think the league has much of anything against him. I know he's had his with the officials and everything, but name a coach that hasn't had. And I think part of the reason why it's a little bit worse for Brind'amour is because he's relatively recently removed from playing. In the grand scheme of things, he didn't quit playing that long ago. So, and him and Wes McCauley actually played college together at Michigan State. So it feels personal, honestly, but it's probably not. No, it is. It is.
Yeah,
where exactly it's coming from, that remains to be confirmed. but something is definitely personal. Like someone is out to get him somewhere. That may be Francis, it may be somebody else, but right now,
might be a combination of people.
Yeah, it could be a multitude of people, because normally when someone's getting screwed over like this, it takes more than one person to do it. Only reason Slavin doesn't have a Norris is because everyone is too busy judging defense off the offensive output. Absolutely. So to put this in context, if Jacob Slavin and Tony DeAngelo both play an 82-game season, Tony DeAngelo has a better chance of winning the Norris than Jacob Slavin, and that has nothing to do with how good either of them are. That is just the criteria that they go by. Part of it is laziness. Part of it is the inability to judge good defense. The last person I saw get the Norris that I feel like deserved it at both ends of the ice was Cale Makar, because I think he's good everywhere.
Another thing is, and this might be a huge factor too, and nobody can do anything about it, but you can't watch every player, every game in the entire league.
That's true.
So a lot of these voters, right, and a lot of the media that vote, all they can do is look down at a piece of paper and say, oh, well, this guy must be good because he's got 80 points.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that, Slavin has gotten a little bit more respect lately, probably because of all the noise, but, unless he gets 60 points in a season, he'll never win. He'll never have a chance.
I don't think he'll ever do that, just because it's just not his game. He's all about the defensive responsibility first. And, that's one thing that, like, one of the places I'm hoping that Slavin will start getting some recognition is, it's like, if you're talking, okay, if you want to talk numbers in terms of metrics, and I have something to back this up, that video I'm making about him will show it, or the third one in the series, I should say. Per net positive, like metric wise, he is the biggest net positive in terms of penalty killing, because he never takes any, and he is constantly utilized on it, and he's one of the best ones in the league. I think that I narrowed it down to every power play goal he's given up in his career, he has 14 minutes of penalty kill time where he was not scored on against. Like, it's ridiculous how big of a net positive he is in that regard. Now, that being said, the NCAA has an award for best defensive defenseman. Or I prefer the term shutdown defenseman. I feel like defensive defenseman is kind of a redundant term, and it's hard to say it. I think that hopefully the NHL could come up with some sort of criteria. There's 32 teams in the league now. There will be 34 by the end of the decade. I'm okay with them expanding some of the awards criteria, and I think that's one of the first things that they should add. Even if it's like, hey, just take observations of these guys, and it's always going to come down to Slavin, Jonas Brodin, Esa Lindell, Adam Pellick, and guys like that. You're not going to have many candidates for that type of award, because all the defensemen now, it's like, do you jump in the rush? Do you generate offense? Do you have a two-way game? Being a shutdown guy is it's a narrowing field.
Absolutely. I mean, it's there's talk everywhere about it. So maybe, after enough talk, maybe it comes to fruition. We'll see.
Yeah, I would love to see that personally. BG says they don't even recognize defense at that position anymore, Norse. That's true, because I remember like when Nick Lidstrom used to get it all the time, and no one can say Nick Lidstrom was not good at defense. He really was. He was excellent at it. Put a statue of Rod lifting the cup outside the arena. Stop waiting for the Hoff to see what we already know. There's only one reason I'm disagreeing with that. I want to wait until he holds it up wearing a suit.
Yeah.
Then you can just build the statue all at once. That's what I want to see. And, like I said, I've always had this reoccurring daydream that the team is just going to cart him out there and make him pick the cup up first. I can see them doing that. I can see Jordan Stahl and Aho and all of them just grabbing him saying, no, you pick it up first. It would be probably the first time in NHL history that happened. I could see that happening, though.
How cool would it be if he won as a coach and the statue was like, him, but take a line and go right down the middle. Yeah. Half of it is a player, half of it is in a suit. That
would be so cool. It really would. He could have the really long hair on one side and the kind of short hair on another. And, it's like, that would be amazing.
If anybody from the organization is listening to this, give me a call.
I'll just go let Mike or Shane know. No, they can go tell somebody for us. It's Ron Francis, and he kids Brind'amour out of the Hall of Fame. That's, like I said, we have nothing to confirm that. But if I were a betting man, that's where I would put my money. I can tell you that right now. Do you think it would be worth it to give up half of our cap space on Guentzel? We're going to get to that. I promise. I've got some numbers I want to put up here. Part of them you inspired when we were talking about it a little bit earlier. Ultimately, I think yes, but here's the thing about it. Whatever we put up on Guentzel now, it becomes a lower percentage of the cap as the years go on. And I'm not really worried about 38-year-old Jake Guentzel. I'm signing 30 to 35-year-old Jake Guentzel with a little bit on the back end. That's where my mind's at right now. Francis Petty is fucking definitely part of this. Yeah, dude, like we've got no reason to believe otherwise right now. We really don't. Then we saw that one already on Francis, where there's smoke, there's fire. I mean, usually that is totally true.
Yeah.
At BG, I believe it. I was wondering if I'd missed something, but does Ron have that much pull as one of the guys? Maybe. I think he does. He's been on that committee for a while. So,
and he's Ron Francis.
He's Ron Francis. He's one of the greatest players that ever lived. So it's no one's doubting that, but he definitely has something to do with it. B says, you doing any Canes live draft coverage later this week? I personally, on this channel, I don't think I will. If you guys are, put a plug in and give everybody, let them know where to find you at so they can come.
So, yeah, we've been talking about doing a live stream as far as, part of our show, Caniac Sessions. But I'm trying to make sure before I announce it and start planning, because I am on vacation next week. We're leaving Saturday and going, down south for a week. And it's like a big family thing. So I don't know what my internet is going to be like where I'm at on that end. 2, I don't know anybody else's availability yet as far as AB or the Sams. I know one of the Sams has to work, but I'm off. So I don't know yet. We're still trying to work that out. And if we can, and another thing is I got to get my wife to buy off on it. Me going live and for 3 hours on vacation. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, so because I'm going on vacation next week. So
yeah, I'll announce it. If we do, I'll announce it before the weekend, so everybody has time to. But hopefully we can go live about 11:30. Free agency opens at noon. Go from there.
Yeah, definitely tune into them for free agency because I have to work that day since I took Monday off. So I might be able to pop in on my phone for a few minutes, but for the most part, I won't be able to cover anything that day. Additionally, I was planning on doing something for the draft this year, but I didn't compile anything about the prospects. I didn't look at any of the mock drafts like I did for that video I did last year. So
I was talking about free agency on Monday. I just realized he said draft coverage later this week. My bad.
Yeah, that's on Friday night, right?
Yeah. No, I won't be doing anything draft coverage wise, unless like we land a huge trade between now and then. Nate just goes somewhere and we trade. We're picking in the top 5 or something crazy like that happens. Then, yeah, we might jump on. But as of right now, no.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do much of anything either. Because like I said, last year I got a bunch of stuff together and I did a pre-draft video and everything, but that was way before I started doing live streams and stuff. And I just didn't really have time to do anything like that this year, unfortunately, because y'all know how I am. I like to be super detailed about stuff like that. Let's see. Literally just thinking of that vision for a graphic, Griff. Yeah, and he would make it happen. You know what?
Yeah, the trophy or the statue.
Yeah, you know what? If BG does that and then the organization just says, there it is, there is our statue, and they send it off to an architect and be like, here, make this. That day is coming, though. I'm convinced this core will win a cup. It's a matter of when, I think. I really do. The deal I keep hearing we offered Guentzel was 8x8. I love that deal if he takes it. We're going to get to that. I promise. We only got 2 more comments here. All right, Rod is the best Hurricane in Canes history, in my opinion. Sometimes I wonder if he knows how to coach, but still, he makes decisions sometimes that I don't agree with. But overall, if I had a pie chart, 95% of the things Brind'amour has done, I agree with. There's very few times I just outright said, "What the hell are you doing?" Like, for the most part, I've agreed with him his entire tenure.
But I guarantee if he set you down and explained to you why he made those decisions, you might not totally agree, but I think he'd sway you back to the other side a little bit.
That, and I would be afraid of him. I'd just be like, yes, sir, I agree with everything you said. Please don't hit me, because he could like nail me with just his pinky knuckle and I'd be out. No, and it's like, so back to that for a second. None of these guys, nobody in a coach, in a coaching job or a position of leadership or anything says this is a horrible idea, let's go with it. If he thought it was a bad idea, he wouldn't do it. He has his rationale and his reasons for everything he does. We on the outside, we may not understand it. We may not see why. We might go, hey, why the hell is he doing that? But he does not intentionally make bad decisions. His frame of reference is significantly different than ours. And the decisions that he makes are more consequential to him and the team than they are to anybody else. The decisions that we would make mean zero in that. So, like, we're just here to provide entertainment and analysis and all that type of stuff. His decisions are the ones that are truly consequential. If we're wrong about something, the worst I have to do is worry about somebody tweeting at me and saying, "Hi, you're an idiot," whereas the consequences for him are significantly worse. Sounds like Guentzel is already getting pushed past 9 and we offered under 8. If it's that close, we better match. You know what? Perfect segue. All right. So I put some stuff together here to talk about this one in particular. Carolina hasn't given up on trying to sign Jake Guentzel. Talks ongoing. My sense is going to be very hard for him not to see what's out there Monday, but the Canes are still trying. Now, Carolina does have a history of allowing players to, and coaching staff and general managers, as we saw recently with Waddell, prior to July 1st, prior to expiration of their contract, to speak to other organizations so they can get an idea of their worth. So then right here, Frank Saravelli says, I said 8 years, slightly less than $8 million. Believe it's 8 by 7.75. Now, here's the good news about that offer. If that is the starting point that Carolina is at, our chances of keeping him went up significantly. That is a good sign if that's like, hey, this is where we're starting. Because that right there, that can go up by about $1.25 million, and Jake Guentzel is a hurricane for the next 8 seasons.
Yeah.
So that also brings me to the next point here. Possible payouts, AAV, times the term, and the total amount of money that would be spent. These are just kind of some rough numbers. It could come in at something a little bit more specific than that, just to make sure that we can fit as many players as we need under the cap. Jarvis still has to get a contract. We're not sure what's going to happen with Nate just yet. It looks like he's going to get traded, but it also looked like that 2 years ago. So right now we have 8.5 by 8, which would be $69 million. 9 by 8, which would be $72 million. 9.5 by 7, which would be $66.5 million. And then 9.75 by 8, if that looks familiar, that is Aho's contract at $78 million. Note, the ceiling for a Guentzel offer at maximum would be similar AAV in term as what Sebastian Aho has. I don't think the organization is interested in paying anybody more than what they're paying Aho. The only guy I see ever making more money than Aho in the next few years is probably Nikishin. And that's more of an inflation thing than a performance thing, I think. Carolina does not have any performance bonuses currently on the books except for $350,000 that Scott Morrow is eligible for this upcoming season and the following season. That could factor in onto a Guentzel contract as well. Griff, what do you think?
No, like, just like you showed, like, I think, I think we have an advantage, and I think everybody gets worked up over AAV, right? Mm-hmm. And what a lot of people don't understand is that we can offer Jake Guentzel something that no other team can currently offer him, and that's the 8th year on the back end of the contract. So because you have that 8th year, then you can pay a little less annually, or and AAV isn't necessarily the cash flow, right? The cash flow is completely different. They just take the entire contract and they average it out for cap purposes. Right. So we can technically pay him less, but more. We can pay him less annually, but over the life of his contract, more than if he were to sign for a higher average annual value on another team for 7 years, right? And that was the graphic you just showed. So it would help us in terms of the salary cap annually, but in the long run, he'd be earning more cash, and he's going to get that money one way or another. That money is going into his pocket, however they structure it. So, that is that. I'm optimistic because of that. So when we hear from the media that Carolina only offered 7.75 million average annual value, everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, they're so cheap." Well, you got to think that's an 8th year on top of that, so you're actually paying him more than another team who was paying him 8.5 over 7 years.
Absolutely. And that was another thing we discussed earlier in the group chat. That 8th year, that extra year, that's a big bargaining chip. Now, here's where I find the media being kind of contradictory. They talk about all these teams that Jake Guentzel has been allegedly linked to, yet none of them have ponied up a 5th-round pick to get the opportunity to negotiate with him and be able to give him that extra year of term. That's why I think maybe we were never close to really being out of this. I really don't think that, because there's somebody out there who would have said, yeah, here's a 5th-round pick. I'll take the most coveted UFA on the market and give him an extra year of term with whatever money he wants.
Yeah, sometimes teams do things like that just to throw some pressure around, right? So I'm sure they went to Guentzel's camp and said, "Hey, we want to, we're interested in signing him. This is where we're at." And the agent's like, "No way, we're way far apart." And they're like, "Okay, well, then if we're not going to budge, so the ball's in your court." And then the team goes out and says something like, "Hey, we're looking at trading rights to signing Guentzel. Is anybody interested?" And then it gets leaked out into the media. And then the Guentzel camp's like, "Okay, hold on. Wait a second. Maybe we really do want to continue to talk to Carolina. So now let's negotiate a little bit. Maybe we can come a little bit closer together here." So, just because things wind up in the media doesn't make them exactly what they are at the surface.
Yeah. And they sensationalize a lot of stuff too, because
The
like I was saying,
Brind'amour contract thing that
yep,
leaked in the
that's
media,
perfect
that's
example.
a perfect example.
Absolutely. And then, it's like we were saying before, if 7.75 is the starting point, Carolina's in good shape to keep him. Because if Guentzel says 8.5 by 8, do it. All right. So, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and I expect, and this might be a hot take, but maybe it's not. But I think that if it gets to July 1st, Guentzel is not signing in Carolina, in my opinion. If we get to noon on July 1st and we haven't signed him, he's gone, because at that point we lose our 8th year and we'd have to pay more to outbid another team.
Right.
So, more on the cap anyway. So I think as this gets closer, Carolina is trying to negotiate lower. The Guentzel camp is trying to negotiate higher. As time passes, that number will start to meet in the middle, and then we could see a signing. It could be the night before free agency opens. It could be, who knows?
11:59 a.m. on July 1st.
It could.
That would be the most Carolina Hurricanes thing ever.
It could. And a lot of these rumors that are coming out about these teams being linked and all this other stuff, for all we know, that could be coming from Guentzel's agent, even though he's not been allowed to talk to anybody, other than at least officially or whatever. The stuff, we know stuff happens.
Oh, yeah.
Because if it didn't happen, then we couldn't get these signings immediately at noon on free agency day. But
yeah, like us signing Orlov at like 12:03 or whatever it was.
Yeah. Yeah, they hashed that out in 3 minutes, right?
Yeah, they're like 7.75 by 2. Okay, fuck it. Yep, yeah, I'm here.
Sold. But I think that, I think Jake Guentzel would like to be here. I think he enjoyed his time. I think he enjoyed playing with Aho. He likes Rod. I think his family likes the area. I think we won that, that side of the house, that side of things. I think he enjoyed it. But, at the same time, this is his last contract, likely. I mean, other than like maybe he gets a year or something on the back end, or 2. Maybe he gets like a Jordan Stahl or type contract, 1-2 years or something on the back end, if he's still healthy and he's still playing it, to the best of his ability. But this is it for him. So he's got to get as much money as he can, and you can't blame the guy for doing that.
No. Not at all.
I mean, could you shave off $500,000 to, make your, ensure that you have good talent around you? Yeah. But we're not talking $7.5 million when you could very well easily be getting paid $9.5 million.
Right.
That's too big of a difference.
No, I totally agree. That's why I'm still baffled that Slavin's supposed 6.5. I mean, that guy, Like I said, if I'm ever like in line at Chipotle or whatever he eats and I see him there and he tries to pay, I'm like, no, buddy, I got you. Like, I don't have the money you have, but I ain't broke. I'll be like, you did us the most amazing favor ever. That's why and me and Sam were actually talking about it a little bit last night. That we're kind of like, okay, if Slavin can take 6.5, why can't Pesci take 5.5 or 6? Because I mean, Slavin, like, that's not a lot of money for what he's capable of.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to get too off topic here, but last couple of days, I thought maybe it's, maybe if Pesci does want to sign for lower, it might be time for him to move on. Just mainly because we got Chatfield signed and Orlov's still here, and Nikishin's on the horizon, and I just
Morrow,
and
we've got like so much past that. Ronan Sealy, Dominic Fensor. You can re-sign Tony. Maybe you've got. You can always go out and
get You can always go out and get a $1.5 million like grinder.
Joel Edmondson,
what I mean? Right? Somebody that just can come in and play hard minutes. So
yeah. It's like go out there and shut people down for 12 minutes a night and kill penalties. Yeah, there's plenty of guys like that, especially if they're left-handed.
Like an Ian Cole. Not that I want Ian Cole to come back here, but a guy
Mario
like
Ferraro.
Mario Ferraro, right. Well,
that's my boy, though. But I mean, that's like one of my favorite non-Hurricanes.
I hear you.
All right, let's see what else we got here. Matthew Powell also says, can Guentzel's agent even talk to other teams before July 1st? Isn't that up to us? The team can grant permission for him to speak to other teams, and that's something, that's something that Carolina appears that they're really, really good about. A lot of other teams will be like, no, fuck you, don't talk to them. Carolina seems to be pretty good about letting their employees, whether it's the players or whoever, speak to other organizations to get their worth. As you may remember, Don Waddell, the first time that his contract was up with Carolina, he actually interviewed with Minnesota. He came back with the offer and Dundon matched it. So we could potentially see something like that happen with Guentzel. We really could. That's why it's cool that they're letting him like kind of speak to other teams, because he can come back and say, hey, they offered me this. And they'll be like, okay, we'll either match that or, oh, by the way, here's an extra year, like we were talking about before, that will make you more money ultimately. And there you go.
Yeah.
The Ducks tease their news font. I'll send you a pic if you want. Yes, please. I'm curious to see that, because like the logo looks cool, but if the colors are what they say they are, those things are fucking ugly. They need to go back to
You don't like it?
If they went to the black pants with it, I'd be okay with it, but it's like an overabundance of orange. Like, I feel like a color that's that loud needs a little something to offset it. The orange itself is fine. Now, it might grow on me because like the current Canes away, when it first came out, when it was just showing just the sweater itself, I was like, about it. But then when I saw it with the full kit, with the gloves and the pants, I'm like, that looks good. And then when they switched to the red helmets, I'm like, that's awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
I've called BS on Guentzel from day one. They have the biggest chip in their pocket the 8th year. They're not out of it by a long run. Yeah, I'm a little bit more optimistic now, because thanks to talking to out of all of the 5 of us in our little group, this guy is the most rational out of all of us. When we get a little like, oh my God, it's the end of the world. And he's the one who's kind of like, okay, the voice of reason.
Me?
Yeah, you. Oh. You really are. Because it's like when everybody else is like, oh, fuck, the sky is falling. You're like, guys, relax. It's okay. Yeah. And then the rest of us get back down to earth and we're like, you know what? He's right. This is not that bad. Let's see. May have missed my comment about coming down, but I definitely want to link, at least say thank you in person for the support from you both. Appreciate y'all. Yes, absolutely. Please come make a game. Now, I won't be going to any probably until after January. Reason being is I'm going to save my money up to try and go to playoff games more, because I've only been to 2 in my entire life. The one last year when they eliminated the Devils, and Game 6 against the Rangers. So I'm hoping the next one I go to is a little bit more enjoyable than that.
You can send me a DM at Caniac Sessions on X, and I have season tickets, so I'm there most nights. And on opening night, we usually do a huge tailgate. So, a big tail. We're going to do a huge tailgate this year. So send me a DM. We will definitely link up for sure.
You're making me change my mind. I might actually come down there for opening day.
Let's go. Let's go.
Yeah,
you can sit with me. Let's go.
Yeah, and what I'll do is I'm gonna probably stay at one of the pet friendly hotels nearby, so I can bring my dog to the tailgate for a little bit, and then I'll run him back, and then I'll come to the game.
Let's go.
But yeah, absolutely. So to continue on the Guentzel subject for a little bit, in terms of what we were talking about with structuring the contract, this I feel like is the ceiling for Jake Guentzel. This is Aho's contract structure. As you'll notice, his is kind of linear in terms of what he's paid in terms of signing bonuses and base salary. Now, big difference here is Jake Guentzel is 30. His contract would probably be heavily front loaded. His base salary would probably be, let's say it is just for sake of easy numbers, let's say it's a 10/8. He'll probably get a base salary of like 15 in the first 4 seasons, and then the other 4 would pay him out the rest of it. So let's see, 15/4, that's 60, and then you'd get the other 20 million over the course of the last 4 seasons, for an example. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that would be the number, but the reason I'm saying that is it's not an over 35 contract. There's no penalty against the cap. So if Jake Guentzel decides, you know what, I'm 36, the Carolina Hurricanes just won 5 cups in a row, I'm going to retire, there is no penalty against the cap, and most of his money is already in his pocket. And as I aforementioned, one of the other good things about it is we don't have any signing bonuses on the books except for Scott Morrow. So that's something else you could maybe incentivize Jake Guentzel with for his first few seasons. And then that's money you don't have to worry about later. Additionally, if you have to buy him out later, if it's front loaded, the later you get into the contract, the less consequential, one, it is for his wallet, and 2, for the organization. So, Griff, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I fully agree. Fully agree with what you said. I mean, I don't really have much else to say other. I mean, you hit it. So, and then all my stuff I kind of said earlier. So, I think it gets done. I think the fact that the media has circled back to it today, I think it's going to get done. And
yeah,
I mean, unless something happens, negotiations go bad and the wheels fall off. But I truly believe if it goes past into July, I don't believe he's coming back. But I think it gets done before that.
And some of the teams he's been linked to, like the Rangers, how the hell are they going to fit him under the cap? He'd have to take a much bigger pay cut there than he would with us. Yeah. And we have the extra year of term. All right, so third and final topic. Connor McDavid was, I believe, the 6th player in NHL history. I didn't have time to put together a slide for this, but I believe he was the 6th player in NHL history to receive the Conn Smythe Trophy despite being on the losing team in the Stanley Cup Finals. The last player to do that was Jean-Sébastien Giguère with the Ducks. The big difference there is that the trophy was already out there when the handshake line was over with Jean-Sébastien Giguère, so he was able to accept it immediately and then go be with his team. Connor McDavid, on the other hand, was already in the locker room with his team that he is the captain of when Gary Bettman brought it out, and he did not come back out and physically accept the award. I'm personally okay with him not coming back out, because him coming out after a Game 7 Stanley Cup Finals loss and leaving his team in the locker room to accept that award, I feel like that would have upset them a lot, and they were probably not in a good mood.
No, and the question I asked people today was, well, would you? I
wouldn't.
Hell absolutely no. Not. Hell no. I'm not going back out there while, I just had to, he went through the handshake. He led the team through the handshake line, very respectful, waited, hugged every guy as they came off the ice, or at least, pat on the back, whatever, and then was the last member of that team off the ice. There's no way that I'm coming back out onto that ice where the Panthers are already celebrating and hugging and, especially in their barn. There's no way that I'm coming back out. So I don't blame him. I don't blame him at all. I don't think it was unclassy. I think he showed class in the handshake line. And I'm gonna be honest, I'm not a Connor McDavid fan. I respect him, but I can't stand him. Right. And, but I will say, he showed class. He shook hands. He, waited for his team. He didn't throw a fit like, others have in the past. So, no, I'm fine.
And one other thing I think that has to be taken into account, I know that, we look at these guys as being these superhuman athletes and everything, but they're still humans. Connor McDavid clocked like 28 minutes of ice time in that game.
Yeah.
You could see by the end of it, he was starting to just fall down on his own with no pressure on him. I think he hit a point of actual literal physical exhaustion, and I wouldn't be surprised if they stuck an IV in him immediately when he got in the locker room. I really wouldn't. He was probably really worn out, maybe severely dehydrated, and even if he wanted to go back out there, he probably couldn't. So I think that like also may play a factor into it. He might not have been able to stand up for all you know immediately.
That's true too.
Like, and then these guys play through some of the most. We saw it with Jarvis. I'm not going to play through a torn rotator cuff and a broken finger for anything other than a Stanley Cup. So it's one of those things where I think that all the criticism that people gave him was kind of unwarranted, because if I could put myself in that situation, I would not have went back out there if for no other reason my team that I'm the captain of.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be like, hey, I'm going to go get a trophy, even though the rest of you guys didn't get one tonight and probably the worst night of your life. But I'll see y'all in a few minutes now.
Absolutely not.
I'm not I'm like you. I'm not someone who glazes over McDavid like a lot of people do. But I think that what he did last night was leading by example. And I think that he did the right thing, not to mention they were in Florida. That would definitely not be a good place to do it. He would have got booed. They already booed when Bettman announced that he was getting it instead of Bobrovsky. And the debate shifted from that to, well, should someone on the losing team be able to get the Conn Smythe trophy at all? And I want to know what you think about that.
Well, should they, in terms of the way the rule's written? Sure, because that's what the rules say. But I believe that they should change the rules. I believe it should be more like the NBA, and I don't often say that. I hate the NBA, but you know, the finals MVP from the winning team. So not the playoffs, not the whole play. I don't care what you did in round one. I don't care how many points you scored against the Winnipeg or whoever you played in round. I don't even remember who they played in round one, but
I don't either.
It wasn't Winnipeg. It was LA.
Yeah.
I don't care, right? What did you do in the cup final when the lights were the brightest? You know, the team was the hardest that you're playing against, or in theory, supposed to be. So I think that's what it should be, because here's the thing. Connor McDavid now has a Conn Smythe trophy and no Stanley Cup. So now, every time he thinks about that, every time somebody brings up that he's a Conn Smythe winner, every time he looks at the trophy, it's a bad feeling. It's not positive, because what's attached to that? A Game 7 loss, 2-1, where you gave everything you had and you came up short after you came back from an 0-3 start to get to a Game 7, and then you came up 1 goal short, or two.
Yeah, that's the worst part about it. They were in that game until pretty much the very end.
I mean, yeah, and an argument could have been made is they had that sustained offensive possession there with like 2.5, 3 minutes left, and Stuart Skinner's just standing in the net. Like, get him off. They didn't pull Stuart Skinner until like what, a minute 15?
Yeah, that didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Like, you know, if Brind'amour was in that situation, he would have been out at like 3:30.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I'm not saying you got to pull him at 3:30 just by rule, but when they had sustained offensive possession, they were dominating. You know, the ice was definitely tilted. Go ahead and pull your goalie and get a 6 skater out there and try to get a goal, because, I mean, you had Florida on their heels.
Right.
So, anyway, I just say that because it was close.
Yeah.
You know,
no, I agree. I think it's time to definitely like maybe rewrite that criteria, because the more and more I thought about it, I was just kind of like, they did him kind of dirty by giving him that award. And, you know, it's like, and then that also opened up the debate. I mean, this was going to happen regardless, but did he really deserve it over Sasha Barkov? Like, you know, like, and I asked that semi-rhetorically, as, you know, if Sasha Barkov had gotten the award, we wouldn't be having all these discussions about it, because Sasha Barkov would have just held it up, or if Bobrovsky had gotten it for that matter. But I feel like if anybody from the Panthers deserved it, it was Barkov. It was like,
he
holds it up.
He was second in voting.
Yeah. And, he holds the trophy up, then he holds the other trophy up, and then we all go on about our lives. And I don't think that it's this big discussion. Since it was McDavid getting it, it's a big discussion. So
here's the thing, too. Sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, if you take the whole playoffs as a whole, like I don't think we should, but we do, right? So if you take the whole playoffs as a whole, then yeah, it is McDavid's the guy, because he, the entire length of the playoffs, McDavid was better than Barkov. I mean, there's the whole thing about breaking into the Gretzky territory and all of his assists, and I mean, he had an all-time playoffs. And so, like, yeah, if you take win number 1 through win number 15, because they didn't get 16, but win number 15, then yeah, McDavid's probably your guy, but it shouldn't be. That should not be the way it is.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with him winning it based on current criteria. It is what it is. But like you said, give it to the winning team, the MVP from the winning team in the cup final, and everybody's happy.
Matthew Powell says, I don't blame McDavid at all for not leaving the locker room. He did nothing wrong. However, IMO should go to the winning team. It clouds the celebration. Yeah, it's definitely generated a bunch of hell, we're here talking about it right now, all the extra conversations that are had because of it now.
It was awkward in the moment. You could see in the player's face, you could see in Bobrovsky's face that it was awkward.
Yeah. Dylan Bollinger says, so no Nikishin next year. I didn't get to see last episode. I know you talked about it, and I hope we get him ASAP. Yeah, so here's the good news about that. Our friend Ugg_Ugg translated it for us, the interview from Nikishin's agent. So essentially what it comes down to is when Spartak Moscow traded for Nikishin, they gave up a lot of assets. I think it was a 5-player trade on their end, ultimately, between players and picks. It was a five assets went back just for Nikishin. And they want to make sure they get the rest of their investment before he comes over to North America. That's why he's going to play his last season over in the KHL. Now, there is one other scenario here, and I have nothing to back this up, but if SKA starts having a really bad season and they fall out of the playoff picture really early, don't be surprised if they let him come over and he's able to sign a deal before it's too late. That is highly unlikely, though, because SKA St. Petersburg has a really damn good team.
Yeah.
Let's see. Keep the rule as it is. A goalie for a losing team can be the MVP. The best player can be on the losing team. Yeah, I mean, maybe they can keep the rule written, but then just tell everybody that's voting, like, hey, vote for whoever you want, but the highest placed guy on the winning team is going to get it, because, dude, like, it was weird. Like you were saying, it was just outright awkward, McDavid getting that award, and he has to live with that until he's either going to, well, I mean, he'll still keep being, the best player alive, but either this is going to be like a weird thing that he's going to have to get over, or he's going to come out next year and he's going to set the world on fire in a way that he hasn't even done yet.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I think they did a disservice to the player. I mean, yeah, it's a nice award, but like I said earlier, it's not a positive thing for him.
No, well, it's no different than having a Prince of Wales or a Clarence Campbell Bowl. You know that you were 4 away from the trophy you actually wanted.
Yep.
I sent you the dog's font photo, by the way. Yeah, I'll look at it in a little bit, buddy. Thank you. Alrighty. Well, I think that's all we had to cover tonight. I am still optimistic about Guentzel. Brind'amour getting in the Hockey Hall of Fame, not so much. And I think that we had a very, very good discussion about the criteria regarding the Conn Smythe that I don't think any of us were expecting to have. So, Griff, please tell everyone where you can find you at, and we'll call this a night. And this has been a really good stream. Like, I know we've done a lot of them lately, but this one was really good.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. So you can check us out on X, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube at Caniac Sessions. We are a podcast at the surface. We have started live streaming all of our sessions. We've done 4 live streams in a row now. We're going to continue doing that. We are part of the Hockey Podcast Network, THPN, so you can check them out too as well. Shows from all over the NHL. There's shows representing every team throughout the NHL, even the AHL, PWHL, just huge. So check out THPN, check us out. And we just put out session 48 or 49. I don't remember off the top of my head. 2 days
49,
ago. So
I think.
49, yeah. So check us out on YouTube.
All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us. This has been a good night. I'm not sure when I'll be on again. I know that I'm recording with the Sams on Thursday nights for it to be released on Friday morning. But while I'm on vacation, I've decided I'm going to log out of X. I'm going to log out of YouTube. I'm just going to unplug for a week, and I will come back to whatever I come back to, and I'll catch up then. As much as I enjoy this stuff, I do need a break from it, reset my mind, and be able to do things and everything like that. But everybody, thank you very much for joining us. Griff, especially, thank you for joining us.
Yeah,
this
man,
has been
fun.
A great episode, man. No, this one was great. Like we always have good ones, but I'd say that this was one of our best ones, really.
Agree.
All righty. Everybody, thank you very much. Y'all take care. I will see you next time.